Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and today I have a grading video for you on grading Morgans, just talking a little bit about how to grade these guys and take a closer look at them. And of course, we will reference my favorite book, which is the official ANA grading standards for US coins, but especially if you can get the older editions from the 70s that have the line drawings. Those are the ones that I prefer to use because it's easier for me to understand and tell exactly what they're looking at. Now we've got a group of coins here that all have different grades on them, a group of Morgans, and I want to start with this 1893S here and just talk a little bit about the grade that it received based on the grading standards and how you can look at this coin and see what conclusions you come to with the grading book and the way that PCGS graded the coin. One of the things I want to talk about, especially on lower grade coins, one of the keys is you start to look at the rim. You know, the rim is this whole area that goes around the coin, and generally to be a good or better, you've got to have what they call a full rim. Now the full rim will vary from coin to coin as far as what they consider a full rim, but the most general standards on these is that the lettering is still intact and the rim has not bled into the lettering. And so you can see there's some areas in this coin where the rim is very soft. In other words, kind of like when you're driving your car and they say, watch out, soft shoulder ahead. There's certain areas where the rim really starts to get close to blending in some, like here, some of the letters down here in dollar, it's pretty close, and one and United. And all of those things help keep the coin to be above good because the rim is actually intact. Now the grading standards for a good 4 just says that the hair will be well worn with very little detail remaining. The date letters and design clearly outlined, full rim, eagle worn, nearly flat but completely outlined, design elements smooth but visible, legend is all visible, rim is full. The picture here is actually for the coin below an AG, about good, and you can see that they have some of the rim going into some of the lettering on that. The next page over, we get to see this split onto VG. This coin pictured here is a good, and you can see some of the detail, even a little bit of detail in the eagle's wings near the breast. Once you get to VG, most of the details in the hair are worn smooth. All letters and date are clear. Cotton blossoms flat and leaves merging in spots. Hair of eagle's right wing and 1/3 of the left wing are smooth. All leaves in wreath are worn, rim is complete. So they kind of start adding detail back in when you look at those descriptions that they use, talking about the different grades on your coin going from a VG, from a good to a VG. And some of the details that are important on Morgans, you heard him talk about the cotton blossoms, which are those two areas right there. And then around them there are leaves. Of course the Liberty is full. Then you have up here, you have the wheat stalks in her hair. Then you have the hairline. You end up having the ear and the hairline on the back, the Liberty cap. You know, the jawline and the eyes also, to me, are important areas. I don't see those talked about quite as much when you read some of the details on here. And then on the eagle, you notice that they treat the right and the left side differently because they always seem to have a different amount of wear to them, the way that they're struck. One side's actually a little bit higher and has a little bit more detail to it. And so all those little areas in the middle of the coin tend to be protected when the coin wears. So next we're going to step up to this fine, and you'll see a pretty big difference in the amount of detail on this coin from your just good to a fine. And you'll see all of a sudden really full cotton outlines. I have pretty much full leaves actually on this coin. You know, the beginning of them, of course, they don't have the detail in them, but I'm just talking about the edge outline of them. And then a lot of the lines show up in that hair. Okay, they say that the hairline along the face is clearly defined. So what they're talking about now is, if you look at this area where the hair meets the forehead, you know, and on this coin here, it all blends together. And up here, we've got a line that kind of separates, so you can see, hey, you know, that's actually hair. I don't think it's a toupee. And that is how you would look at that It also says that the lower two cotton blossoms are flat, but the two lines in each show clearly. So you're going to be able to see the outline of those leaves on the hat area. The reverse, 1/4 of the eagle's right wing. This is okay. Now we got to learn our right from our left. That's the right. Let's see, the 1/4 of the eagle's right wing and the edge of the left wing are smooth. So, interestingly enough, instead of talking about detail on this, they're talking about the lack of detail. So you see where they talk about that area being smooth on the left wing. That top area smooths out faster. That was consistent with the lower grade coin too. You saw a little bit more detail on the wing on the right versus the wing on the left. So just little details like that are some of the things that this coin book points out so clearly, and it makes it really easy, I think, to kind of learn. Especially if you get a bunch of coins in front of you, you can start to learn, just how to grade. We're going to jump all the way up to a VF. Now, this book that I have, interestingly enough, we've got two different grades here. We've got a VF25 and a VF35. The grading book shows a VF30 and then an XF40. They also have a VF20. So we're going to be splitting hairs here. It's going to be in between a couple of these. But so for the VF25, I'm going to show the VF20 example, or read it, that there are smooth spots visible on the hair and forehead. Okay, so that's going to be, this is a lot of smoothing still up in this area. And then up into the forehead, there's a lot of flatness right here across the top of the face. The cotton leaves heavily worn but separated. Wheat grains show wear. Once again, now you see how much more of the leaves you can see here on there. And I will say, now when they're talking about the cotton leaves worn but separated, these ones are separated. Those bottom two, now let's go ahead and compare that to the VF35 and see where you get when you're talking about them being separated. So the lines that I'm looking at very, very specifically on here, and this is where it gets really detailed, is actually this line right here. You see how those two leaves are separated? Now, in fairness to the book only mentions the leaves are separated, but there are 4 leaves here. You got 2 up top and 2 at the bottom. But you can see how the bottom 2 leaves here are not actually separated. And the reason I'm pointing that out is just to say, when you look at these 2 coins next to each other, a quick glance, it's kind of hard to tell, which one is nicer. They're actually very, very comparable. And then, so you just kind of got to learn to see what those differences are. And so you can look at it 2 ways, either where there is wear or where there is not wear, almost like a negative impression. And that's the thing, that sometimes you're looking for details, but sometimes to find details you actually have to find a lack of details, right? So first you must unlearn what you have learned. All right, so on the back they mentioned that some of the leaves on the wreath are well worn, okay, and the breast is smooth, and only a few feathers show on the head. All right, so let's look at that. A few feathers on the head, we got that. And then we've got the leaves are worn on the wreath. The tips of the wings are weak but complete. Tips, these are the tips of the wings. Okay, let's see if we can distinguish now when we look at this VF35 how much more detail there is. And of course, like I said, I'm reading the VF30 definition on this coin here. So for the obverse, we're talking about that the wear shows on the high points of the hair from the forehead to the ear. So what you're talking about now is the fact that you've got, once again, you start seeing some flatness here, which actually means you're seeing more detail in the hairline. And also that flatness that was right here over the forehead is actually a lot less flat. There's a little bit of a roundedness to it, which is the originality of the coin versus the other one, right? So look at that eyeball. Now let's look at this eyeball. Right, now do you see these kind of like flat gray areas? It almost turns like, coins that have a real nice original color, it's easier to grade because all of that, there's almost just a color change where there's flatness, right? So like this whole area, you see the flatness, you see flatness across here, and it's a lighter shade of gray than this. Who knew that coin grading involved 50 shades of gray? So we've got a lot more detail there into the hairline and a lot less flatness. And like I was pointing out before, the leaf, there's some more separation in the leaf. There is more detail in the cotton blossoms. We didn't get down to these hairs down here, but you can see all the curls that she's got going on there. And actually, you see there's a back line on that Liberty cap, that definition on the Liberty cap. Let's look at this one here just for a reference point. And you can see how there's definition there, but it's not as strong or as bold. Same thing with those back, those curly locks that come down the back there, okay? The reverse wear shows on the leaves of the wreath and tips of wings, only a few feathers visible on the breast and head. So really, those finer details you start to see now. Look at the head and the number of feathers that you can see on the head, both the neck and also the back of the head, and compare that to this one where there's a lot more flatness on the top of the head than there is on the previous. And now the feathers, the breast of the bird, there is a little bit of detail that's starting to show up. There's separation there. That neck plumage has a different set of feathers from the breast, and if you look at on this one, they just kind of blend together, right? And so next on to your leaves, you can see that you start seeing more leaves. They're easier to count and see the separation on the leaves on one coin from another. Right, and so at a glance, these two coins look pretty comparable, and actually some people will almost think that this one, because it just has a nice look to it, might be nicer. And then you start to look at some of the detail, and you can see how splitting hairs is important, but also you can see kind of how when details are added back in, you start to get the next grade up. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy that. I hope you guys learned a little bit in that video, and I hope you go out and get one of these books. I see them on eBay from time to time for like 10 to 20 bucks. They're not expensive usually, and they're my preferred guide for learning how to grade. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.